Hey everybody, Jay Super Awesome here. I'd like to welcome you all to episode number 2 of my 31 Days of Horror. In this episode, I will be showing you everything I have watched from October 6th through October 12th. Let's have a look. October 6, 2019, I watched Itsy Bitsy. Itsy Bitsy is basically a story about a family that have seen their fair share of hard times. The mother, Kara, has taken a job as a private nurse to watch over a elderly man named Walter, who is a appraiser of rare artifacts, basically. So they will be moving in next door and staying in his guest home. Kara will be watching over Walter because he can't really move around all that good. What this does is puts a lot of hardship on her son, Jesse, to watch over his younger sister, Cambria. So he takes on all the responsibilities for his younger sister. Kara is probably one of the worst on-screen mothers I have seen in a pretty good while. She's popping pills and leaving her children home by themselves a lot throughout this movie. We do learn as the story does progress that Kara was involved in an accident to where she lost her youngest child. So I understand that she has a lot of stress and has a lot of anxiety, because that would be the worst thing any parent could possibly go through. But she is neglecting her other children. And considering there's a large creepy spider lurking around, she does get a shot at redemption in this movie. And speaking of the spider, I thought this movie had some fantastic creature effects and felt like that's something that they really had to hit big on or this movie would not work. I did want to mention that this is a Scream Factory release, so I knew some people would be interested in that. And if you are interested in creepy crawly type things, then you might enjoy this one. I thought it was pretty decent. October 7th, 2019, I watched Basket Case. Now, Basket Case is one that I have known about for a really long time. I remember it sitting on the store shelves as a VHS tape when I was very young. And I have even had the Blu-ray trilogy in my collection for a pretty long time. And I have just never give these movies a chance and have never watched them. I'm happy to say that I finally watched the first one, and I'm really glad I did. The story is basically about Siamese twin brothers, Dwayne and Bilal, were born conjoined. Their mother did not survive the delivery, and their father has resented them as they have grown up. And when they reach the right age, their father hires a group of surgeons, basically anybody who would take the job, to remove the twin brothers, to separate them. So, as soon as this happens, Bilal is discarded into the trash, but is quickly rescued by his brother Dwayne, and from that point on, the two were inseparable. They immediately seek revenge on their father, then spend a number of peaceful years with a close relative that takes them in and accepts them for who they are. After the passing of this close relative, they begin their journey of revenge on the surgeons who separated them. I really like the set locations within this movie, and I really like how the movie was shot and filmed. It sort of had a gritty look to it. I guess that's the best way I can describe it. I thought the movie had some really good practical effects with the blood and the gore, and I thought the kills were good as well. I did think the movie had some pretty cheesy looking stop motion effects, but overall it didn't hurt my enjoyment of this movie. Something else that I wanted to mention is that I thought this movie had a lot of screaming throughout its runtime, and I know that's something that's standard for horror films, but this one did take it to another level. So overall, I did enjoy this one, and I'm looking forward to checking out part 2 and 3. October 8th, 2019, I watched Children of the Corn, Runaway. Now, I have had a tradition for as long as I can remember that every year during October, I always watch a Children of the Corn movie. So I was really happy when I come across Children of the Corn Runaway because I had never seen this one. And I'm a little bit late getting to it, because every time I have run across it, it's been kind of pricey for some reason. The story is basically about a young girl who escapes the children from Gatlin and from He Who Walks Behind the Rolls. We quickly discover that she's pregnant and she gives birth. Many years later, she has been traveling on the road with her son, moving from town to town, never staying at the same place for very long. So basically homeless and living really hard. They end up in a small town where she is able to get a job as a mechanic. The shop owner even puts them up in a house, so for a while they are doing good. Her and her son are very close, and he has always been very supportive of her. But it's not long before her past begins to haunt her. Overall, I really did enjoy this movie. I really liked the storyline, and I thought the movie had some really good practical effects with the blood and the gore. There is one sequence where our main character, she is seeing something that's not really happening, but it's basically like a mass slaughter going on, and there's CGI blood flying around everywhere. But seeing how it wasn't actually happening, I was kind of okay with it, and I didn't really mind it as much. But all the other scenes with blood and gore looked really good in my opinion. But I'm a fan of this director. I enjoy his movies. He did the Feast trilogy, he did Piranha Double D, and he did Zombie Night, and I look forward to seeing what he does in the future. I just really enjoy his work, and I feel like he's a capable director. So I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it fit perfectly in the Children of the Corn franchise, and it's probably one of my favorite sequels. October 9th, 2019, I watched Street Trash. This was another first time watch for me, and I was completely blown away by this movie. I absolutely love the violence and the gore and the practical effects within this movie. Each meltdown sequence was brutal and gross, and I loved every minute of it. Everything about this movie is over the top, from the acting to the dialogue. The story is basically about a group of people living in a junkyard, homeless. The main characters are brothers who we get a pretty good idea of what their day-to-day life is like out on the streets. There's a lot of people living hard and living rough. Looks like nobody's had a shower in a pretty good while, so everybody's dirty in this movie. The junkyard is run by a tyrant who was a former war veteran who sees delusions. He's violent and extremely dangerous and will kill you without thinking twice. So he's definitely a person not to mess with. Another character within the story is the junkyard owner, and he's pretty much a scumbag as well. And I would consider about all the characters in this movie to be low quality human beings. And I really don't want that to sound mean, but it really does seem like nobody's trying to improve their situation. Overall, really did enjoy this movie. Some of the scenes that I like that don't include the meltdown scenes are, there is a severed penis junkyard chase within this movie. So basically, a man gets his penis cut off and it's being tossed around the junkyard. And I know that sounds absolutely insane, because it is. Another really funny scene was the shoplifting scene, but of course, the meltdown sequences are the star of the show for this one. And I have to mention that this release by Synap, the picture quality is absolutely fantastic. So I know this one's probably not going to be for everybody, but I was happy I watched it. October 10th, 2019, I watched Annabelle Comes Home. This is the third installment of the Annabelle series that's a part of the Conjuring universe. And out of the 3 movies so far, this is probably my least favorite, but I still do enjoy all 3. The story this time around is the Warrens have returned home with Annabelle. They lock her up safely in the cursed and haunted artifacts room, and soon they are out on another case, leaving their daughter behind with the babysitter once again. The babysitter ends up throwing their daughter a birthday party, and the babysitter invites over one of her friends, who we eventually learn has recently lost her father. And she is intrigued by the cursed and haunted artifacts room, and Annabelle does eventually get set free. What I really liked about this movie was we get to see more of the cursed and haunted artifacts room. We get a little bit more detail into some of the items, and Annabelle is using these items to her advantage. Some of the artifacts that we get to learn about this time around is there is a white wedding dress that stands in the corner. It is from the Bloody Bride. There are some coins laying on the table. They are from the ferryman. Of course, he puts the coins over your eyes and carries you off to the land of the dead. There is a werewolf and a demon within this movie. So overall, some really cool characters. But I didn't really find this movie to be scary. And it kind of come off as a Goosebumps style movie, in my opinion. Of course, this is a little bit more hardcore than that because there is a little bit of blood. But I didn't find it to be scary at all. If you are a fan of the Annabelle series, you may still enjoy this movie. If you are not a fan of this series, then this one's probably not going to bring you in. But overall, I still did enjoy it. October 11th, 2019, I watched Dead Pit. Dead Pit is basically a story about a doctor named Ramsey who has crossed over into the lines of malpractice with his mental hospital patients. Once he is finished with his patients, he discards them into his dead pit. Once confronted by a colleague doctor who explains to him they should be saving lives, not ending them, Ramsey explains, "I've done life. Now I'm doing death." The colleague doctor shoots him between the eyes, tosses him into the dead pit, and the evil is temporarily contained. 20 years later, a new patient enters the hospital that goes by the name of Jane Doe because she has amnesia. But she believes that it's not amnesia, that her memory has been stolen from her. So clearly, this Jane Doe will have secrets that will unfold as the story progresses. A big earthquake hits, the dead pit breaks open, and after a few hypnotic therapy sessions with Jane Doe, the evil Dr. Ramsey is resurrected and he conjures up his ghoulish zombie army. Dead Pit is one of my all-time favorite classic zombie films. It has fantastic violence, blood, and gore. The zombie designs are excellent. They are blood-drenched, and they definitely feel like a threat and not just a side distraction, as two cops that were discussing their favorite donut shops would soon discover. The movie has really good music that gives it a nice eerie vibe. It also makes really good use of the lighting with colors such as blues and greens. It gives it a nice creepy atmosphere. This movie is oozing with atmosphere. Overall, this is one of my favorite zombie films, and I highly recommend it for people who enjoy zombie movies. October 12th, 2019, I watched Derailed. Now, I thought the storyline to this movie was really interesting because it pretty much has two different timelines. So I'm going to be really careful with what I say so I don't give too much of it away. Passengers board a murder mystery train, excited for their trip. But this excitement will soon end because the train is held up by a group of passengers that have decided to rob the other passengers. Soon after this goes down, the train will derail and it becomes a monster movie. And speaking of the monster, I thought this was a fantastic aquatic monster design. It's a man in suit, so there's no CGI effects with this monster. It looks really cool. It's slimy looking. It has razor sharp looking teeth. Overall, they did a fantastic job with the design of this monster. And the section of this movie where it turns into a monster movie definitely makes this movie worthwhile in my opinion. For the most part, I did enjoy this movie. That's about all I'm going to be able to say about it without giving too much details away. I do potentially see where people might not like this one, but if you are a fan of monster movies, aquatic monster movies to be more specific, then you might enjoy this one. This movie does have a cameo appearance from Lance Hendrickson, so I know that will be appealing to certain people. But overall, I had a fun time watching this one. Okay, so there you have it. Be sure to join me again next time on October 20th for episode number 3. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment below. Let me know if you have seen any of these movies, or just let me know what you think about my review. And I'd like to thank you all for watching.